I was at a meeting today with several other metro communities. And it sounds like they're all doing the same thing. Even their committees are all doing Zoom option and televising cast. Consistent. You have an issue with that short.
Sir.
Okay.
Yes, that would be.
So it shows. Maybe we'll go right now.
Sorry, it all worked so seamlessly tonight. Usually it would be not so seamless.
Then that figure,
Mhm.
you know. You try to plan and then everything goes according to plan. All right, 6 o'clock. So we will go ahead and call to order this city council business meeting for Thursday, June 1st, 2023. It is 6 p.m. Lindsay, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Here.
Reba. Here. Baker. Cool.
Here.
Livingston. Here. Mayor Tom Phillips.
I am here as well. We do have quorum, so we will move on. Item number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item number 3 is the approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same. Motion carries. Item number 4 is welcome of guests and public comment. Thank you for being here tonight. At this time, we'll open up the dais for you to address council. For non-agenda items, we'll give you a 3-minute time limit. We'll realize we can't take action on those tonight since they're not on the agenda. Also, if you'd like to to comment on any item in the consent agenda, now would be the time. Hearing none, we will move on. Item number 5 is our consent agenda. Tonight, we have expenditures, tax abatement, May 4th, 2023 minutes of the regular city council meeting, the May 18th, 2023 minutes of the regular city council meeting. We have a resolution to adopt a background check policy. We have resolution setting a date of meeting at which it is proposed to approve a development agreement with Jensen Oswald LLC, including annual appropriation tax increment payments. We have a resolution accepting the certificate of completion and approving final pay estimate number 9 with change order number 1 to SM Hitches and Sons If I garbled that, I apologize. For the Northwest Service Trunk Sewer Extension Project. We have a resolution approving a 28E supplemental agreement for snow removal on Iowa Highway 28 with the Iowa Department of Transportation. We have a resolution approving the disposal of city property and purchase of replacement equipment, it's weapons for the police department. We have a resolution reappointing Andrew Steiger to the Norwalk Planning and Zoning Commission. We have a resolution approving fiscal year 24 wage for office assistant Carrie Holocaust. We have a resolution to approve pay estimate number 2 to Land Sync Construction in the amount of $26,457.50 for the Norwalk Fieldhouse project. Can I get a motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Reba?
Yes.
Cool?
Yeah.
Livingston?
Yes.
Lester?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6 is old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. Item A is a public hearing on a proposed amendment to the Norwalk Urban Renewal Area with Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott. So we'll open up the public hearing at 6:03 p.m. So the purpose of this hearing is to get public input on amending Norwalk's urban renewal area. This is being done to allow Norwalk to use property tax dollars in the form of tax incremental financing to provide incentives for the first hotel in Norwalk, which will be a Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott. Luke, Paris, Holly, I'll let you drive this one, whoever wants to.
We have to amend the urban renewal area mainly because we are changing what we're doing within Norwalk Central and Hughes Crossing development agreement that we had. And as you guys remember, Diligent determined that they wanted this hotel to locate within that area. So they're willing to forego the TIF increment that would be coming from that particular parcel so that we would be able to enter into a development agreement directly with the hotel developers for that increment. So it's not additional new increment, it's already increment that was pledged to that developer for the Norwalk Central infrastructure. So that is what we're doing, is we have to amend that agreement because the TIF is changing direction. So it's not new, it's just shifting.
Okay.
So Holly, this lowers the Diligent TIF amount?
They will not be able to get the TIF from that particular parcel, but if they are able to create enough new generated revenue from everything else they create in that area, they can still meet their max, but they won't be able to use that parcel for it. Which is unlikely they would be able to generate enough in the other parcels, you know, over that TIF period of 20 years to meet that, but they have the ability to say that.
And David, they are aware of that. That discussion has been held with Diligent, their representatives.
All right, any other questions? I understand that a URA consultation was had with other taxing entities. Luke Nelson and Jim Doherty were there. Did you have any attendees?
Yes, Jake Lowell. So he would be the business manager, financial person for Norwalk Community School District. And he was there more just ask a few questions. We had some good discussions with him. The key point that we always try to pass along to the school is that we're following through on our general policy that we won't utilize TIF for residential projects. So that put a smile on his face, and beyond a few basic questions, he didn't express any concerns or any issues that needed to be passed along.
Great. Okay, thank you. Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments on this item?
We have not.
All right, any other public comment? Hearing none, we will go ahead and close public hearing at 6:06 p.m. Item 6B is a resolution to approve an urban renewal plan amendment for the Norwalk urban renewal area for the Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott. So Luke, Holly, anything to add? Any discussion, questions from council?
Motion.
Second.
All right, I got a motion by Livingston, a second by Poole. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool?
Yeah.
Livingston?
Yes.
Lester?
No.
Reba?
Yes.
All right, Motion carries. Item 6C is public hearing regarding a zoning amendment to chapter 175A.36. Privately owned improvements serving more than one property owner. So we'll open up public hearing at 6:07 PM. So I believe this item is about the use of private streets in commercial areas where the drive serves more than one property owner or business. In the past, our focus has been on private streets and has centered around residential areas, and we're making this correction for commercial. Luke Paris, I'll let you take it.
Yep, so we had brought this as just a discussion item to council, which then directed staff to proceed with looking at an amendment and going through the full process and getting P and Z's input on that as well. So we did that, held a public hearing at our planning commission meeting in mid-May, and had a proposed document for them that ordinance document that would have limited the through street issue to only residential streets. And planning commission had a lot of good discussion on it. They wanted to add some additional language, which is the primary highlighted portion of text in the staff report, where they wanted to, they were good with the concept of a commercial development being allowed to have a private street that connected to two public streets. But they still wanted some ability to look at each situation, not them specifically, but the city being able to look at a situation saying, well, in general, yes, we'll allow that, but we don't want to just make it carte blanche. So what we've written here is that a through private street in a commercial development is only allowed if it's a master plan development, so some kind of PUD process that plans things out, or it gets specifically identified and approved with the official plat or site plan by the city. So in those plat, site plan, master plan review processes, the city staff, P and Z and council will have the ability to make some judgment calls on if a certain project is good for a through street or not. So that's what they were recommending to you all. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question. Council.
I guess I like the flexibility of it in that sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it may not. The only real question I've ever had on private streets is maintenance. You know, and how we assure maintenance to be done. This one that we're talking about here, I'm sure that the business that wants this will maintain that to be open because they want business, right? But going forward, one of the things I think we should keep in the back of our mind is when we have a private street, a lot of times there are many different owners along the way. Right? So what mechanism do we use to make sure that, you know, snow is plowed and things like that happen, right? You know, but in this case, I mean, I have no problem with it and I appreciate the flexibility.
So I want to make sure I understand this amendment. First of all, the sentence, the first yellow highlighted, private street in a commercial development may provide a through connection between two separate public streets. Is that an explanation or is that an allowance?
I believe it's an allowance. You may do that. You're not, it's not a shall or a will, but you have the option to do that as a commercial developer.
If we approve the plan.
Yes, yeah.
A through private street. So a private street in a commercial development may provide that, but only through a master plan development. I'm confused about the two sentences that to me, I don't understand if they're saying the same thing, different things. One's qualifying another. I don't understand.
So how I interpret this, and Jim, I'll throw you under the bus a little bit. You helped me write it. So if we if we're a little obtuse with it, we certainly between Jim and I mean, our direction from P and Z was write a code section, but make it so that we have flexibility to approve it or deny it, which seems easy, but ended up being trickier than you might have thought.
I think one reason why, I think one reason why I see the wording there is because,
Why I see what word in
further,
there?
you know,
Why I see what word in there?
when you see the wording, a private street in a commercial development may provide through connection between two separate public streets. That sentence is in there because further up in the ordinance, it says that a private road shall not connect to public streets.
Right.
Okay, and when that was originally written kind of in generic form, I guess when we were discussing it, I felt that was probably more pertaining to residential than commercial development. So that sentence is in there to basically accept out from the requirement stating that they can't be used to connect two public streets in events where it's serving commercial property versus residential. That's why that sentence is there.
How does it reconcile with the next sentence?
And the next sentence then states by having may as opposed to shall in the first sentence, that says that there is instances where it can't be allowed. It can't be allowed. And I think the next sentence qualifies that first sentence by saying it through private street and commercial development will only be allowed in master plan developments or specifically identified and approved official plat site plan by the city. That sentence was thrown in there because P and Z in their approval wanted to make sure that there was specific approval of a private street beyond just the wording that it can occur. As they wanted review of it. And by putting that sentence in there, that second sentence in there, I felt that that qualified it by, either a master plan, of both those instances have to be specifically approved by council and by planning zone.
So a private street may occur, but only if it's allowed in a master plan or specifically identified and approved in an official plan.
Yes.
Okay. You're marvelous. That's horrible composition. I'm really sorry. It's really difficult to understand.
Okay.
In any event,
We can try to recompose.
I would love it to be recomposed. However,
Okay.
I still don't approve, so you may not have to recompose for my sake, because even if you recompose, I'm probably not going to agree.
Okay.
Because I think of the lovely private street that connects all commercial buildings. That is a constant fight to decide who's responsible for making the repairs as it continually falls apart, right? And we all know what private street I'm talking about. I can't think of the name of it.
I don't think it has a name.
Okay. Right, so
It has a lot.
this to me, that is exactly why I'm opposed to private streets. And this does nothing to make me feel any better. That's my opinion, so.
I think this one, if I remember the proposal correctly, it's almost part of the parking lot. I mean, right, it's connected all the way along the parking lot, so. It probably makes more sense for it to be a private street than a public one. I think this would let us use a hammer if we're sharp enough to do it. To make sure that there's a maintenance piece going forward in order to have it approved. Cause I agree with you, it's terrible, and we've got no hammers.
Yeah, and you may be right. That's not what this says. This also does not say if it runs contiguous to a parking lot, right? That's not what this says. This says,
Right.
I understand that this is drafted in contemplation of something we're already talking about, but it allows it in places that we're not even contemplating yet. So I recognize your perspective.
Okay.
But
And I
still
see
not there.
yours.
I think other things that took into contemplation is how, originally the city wanted Hughes Drive north and south to be private. That comes along, the east side of Fairway. And that was changed over to a public requirement just recently, after Fairway purchased the property. But as we look at it extending further north and through the ground owned by Hy-Vee, I'm not saying future Hy-Vee site, if we don't know when it's gonna be here, but all the agreements contemplated that to be private, including the ground. If you even extend it further north to along the east side of the new City State Bank, and that's gonna extend further north through that circle. That's a private drive also. So we were just trying to figure out a way to accommodate what had been directed by the city in the past. And started by private developers.
Would we have a chance of getting your vote if there was some kind of line in here that's quote to a requirement for a maintenance agreement?
No.
Which to that aspect of it, that's something we require
Right.
with,
So-
new developments. So,
Right.
yep. It's not in this language, it's elsewhere in the code, but we do require maintenance covenants for all private infrastructure.
And how long have we required that?
Probably going back a long time. How long have we been
Right? I mean,
doing
but
it since
see-
I've been here?
Yeah,
So,
but see, right, this is part of the issue.
yep.
We've already got it in place and yet we can't get that stupid road fixed. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, far beyond my comprehension, but really, I mean, that's still the issue. So, yeah, I don't, am I wrong about this? That in PUDs, we can make allowances for private streets in a PUD, or am I wrong about that?
I believe we could do a PUD and have a section that contemplated
And I'm
private
not talking
streets.
about this language here, but.
Yeah, but in general, PUD has the flexibility to say,
Right,
this is different than what our standard code is for reason X, Y, Z,
right.
if you wanted to.
So it seems to me that we can still have some flexibility if there's a PUD without changing it completely. And I can be confident that when we have that kind of issue come up in a PUD, it's actually discussed as opposed to somewhere along the map. It says this is a private street that nobody can really see because it's, you know, a millimeter tall. And then it gets through because nobody brings it to anybody's attention.
Would that be an amendment to the current language to remove the last half of the second sentence for approval of this, or just not do this at all?
I am still not doing
Okay.
this. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the general concept. But the pictures that are shown, the problem street that we have now, part of the problem, I think, is that there's nothing on the other side of that street, just a field. The examples are all shown here are really driveways or ring roads or whatever you want to call them within a multi-commercial building property. So if you're gonna, drive around the mall, if you're going to go from, cut through from Hy-Vee to Home Depot, they're just adjacent properties. A lot of them just have cross easements, okay. And so I don't know, I would feel more comfortable if, and it's kind of in the master plan development. I don't mind having it if it's streets within this part of development. I'm saying, I don't want to have it be commercial to commercial and then have residences or apartments on side using it also,
And that-
because then you've got more maintenance hassle because you've got more traffic on that road than you thought you would. And then we all get the call.
The P and Z discussion was a lot to the idea of, we need to be able to review this stuff because we wouldn't want to have a wholly separate apartment user that built out separate from the commercial, and then they both happen to have private roads that lined up, and then that's where you end up with a conflict point, right? So I think their idea was, we need to have a review of that, so we would deny that scenario, but we would approve something like Jordan Creek or the Smash Park area where it's done collaboratively and it makes sense because everybody knows up front in the PUD process that these roads are private, and you don't end up with somebody that was a user off to the side that was like, oh, now I'm connected to it.
Okay, I just don't know how you're going to pull that. I mean, right now, the road that goes behind Norwalk Family Bunch Street McDonald's goes all the way through. I mean, people who live in Legacy might choose to go down that road and cut all the way through and then take a right and go up to their house.
Especially without the construction.
Right. I mean, there's a reason.
Yeah.
So you have residential traffic on that public street. That is to me not the same as having it cut across Ace parking lot to go to the chiropractic clinic or go to the I-class place, it's just. It's just a different use of a road. And if people are upset that the commercial street, that's a private street, has potholes, they need to talk to the businesses. But when you have something that also just seems to allow general public access for residences, apartments, whatever, that's when you get, I think, more complaints. So I don't know how the maintenance agreement works. I don't know how you enforce it. I mean, you can keep telling them they have a nuisance, but does it work well for you? I mean, I don't know. Does a nuisance?
I mean, we've been able to compel some of the fixes based on that stuff, but I mean, it's not traditionally been a area of focus for our nuisances as far as going out and making sure that all pavement's in tip top shape. We tend to let that be each individual property owner's responsibility to make sure things are functioning appropriately. But when the area back behind Come and Go and McDonald's was really bad, we did engage them, and that's kind of what started the ball rolling to get that area fixed. Other ones in the legacy one, I mean, any repairs that have been done there would have been more engaged by the property owners, not necessarily the city stepping in saying, hey, there's a problem, you got to fix that.
Am I wrong about where I'm thinking this is currently related, and isn't there a bunch of mixed use? Right?
Where are you thinking?
No, okay.
I don't think there's any. By the master plan, isn't this intended to be commercial, that feeder area for the street? If we approved it?
Jackie, the spot that I would think this would fit most would be kind of between the bank and that's going to go over towards Holland Point. That little road between those four properties right there would be a private road.
Yeah, except the map shows it going all the way through to Chatham. And am I wrong that area between Chatham and Colonial Parkway it's not gonna be mixed use?
The area between Chatham and Colonial Parkway right now is IV, which is just commercial and C3, and then the west side of the HH Norwalk property that we zoned in the HH Norwalk PUD recently was C3. The back east side of that currently is a hodgepodge of some C2 and some residential, but we're engaging discussions with them on what the zoning of that'll look like. So I think it's more commercial focused with maybe some residential on the far east side that wouldn't be on that red line, right?
Except that all of those.
That's where the private road would end, Luke.
All of
At
those
the-
residences don't have to go through the Highway 28 to get to Fairway when they can take that road. Or is it not going all the way through to the residences? I mean, right? Because
I don't know how it goes through to the east. That's
which
an unknown.
actually doesn't help me feel better.
Yeah. And
Because what we don't know now could very well be what happens later.
your statement there is the same statement I've made when we've been talking with HH Norwalk about
I know.
planning out the rest of their stuff. Is there's benefits to everybody, them, the city, to think through the totality of a development and what an area can be.
I
So,
think
yeah.
we were even talking about like the traveled way, if you look what Luke's drawing here, even further south between, Chatham and where the city facility is. There's gonna be parking there. There's gonna be a road going through there for the parking. I mean, technically, is that a private road? That's another thing is we just,
The public-private development.
yeah, but still, I mean, we have to figure out, is it gonna be a private road or is it gonna be a public road? Anytime there's conveyance between large commercial areas with multiple commercial sites. Is it just adjoined parking lots? I think we could probably reason that also, but I guess that we kind of wanted to clarify all that, is we don't have that addressed. All we have in our code right now is that we can't have a road, which is connecting to public roads. So even the area south of Chatham and north of our building is gonna be an area where there's a road in there. And is it a private road or is it a public road?
So why it wouldn't be a public road? I thought we talked about all this whole area not having any private streets, that they were all gonna be public streets.
Because it would be a series of parking lots connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't believe that there's anything, any discussion that we can have that's gonna change my opinion. We can keep discussing it, but I don't believe there's any discussion.
Well, oh, all the lines just disappeared.
Oh, sorry.
I guess I'm talking about two different things. I mean, all the roads, the lines that you drew there, Luke, I thought that they were all supposed to be public. That road that goes up to Fairway, up to Colonial. I mean, we had the whole discussion about that needed to be public. And I don't know why any road going, it's going through parking lots. We just have a driveway off a public road.
So one of the things. If we're. The Hughes Drive going up through HH Norwalk, to me, makes sense when it hits that, what was used to be called Market Drive. As public, right? Because you've got all that. You then, that corridor between that Market Drive to Colonial through Hy-Vee in the 10-year-old Hy-Vee site plan drawings they submitted to the city had each individual drive aisle dumping out onto what that corridor was. And in that plan from 10 years ago, that would have been a private, that would not have been a public road at the time. It would have been a private drive on the front side of the parcel. Like you would see like in a Walmart, and any big box store where the far side of the parking lot is usually a longitudinal drive aisle that everything dumps out on, right? In a private road scenario, the red that he drew up there, if that's public, we typically don't want access points on the public roads that frequently. So then you would say, well, Hy-Vee, you can't dump every drive aisle out onto our public road at that interval and having just the island end caps to that. You've got to set that back 10 foot. You're going to have 1 to maybe 2 access points onto that, and then your parking lot. So we can do that. I mean,
Well,
to this stuff, I'm not sure I have a staff opinion which way we go with it. But from a consumption of land standpoint, that is gonna require more use of property for, it's a less efficient use of land for a Hy-Vee or for anybody, really. You're creating right of way that is not going to be used for parking. It's not going to be used for anything other than creating open space.
But if we have, well, first of all, I guess Hy-Vee should have built sooner and they wouldn't have had this problem.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. Because we talked about this, in this particular area, we already are making concessions for Fairway on setback requirements. Why could we not extend the same
We could.
concessions?
And we could write something that allowed all those drive aisles to dump out there and it'd be a public street. It's just,
There's other Hy-Vees, but just have one point, onto a public road this way, public road that way. I don't know why that should be a hardship for them. They'll just have to change their site. plan.
yeah, they certainly would. So.
But if that stays a public street or is made a public street, then certainly we're required, right, for maintenance.
Mhm. And so why we would want to think real hard if we let it be like a normal parking lot where all the drive aisles dumped out, because Wayne and his snow crew are gonna have to plow up and down that, and just how does that interface with having a drive aisle every 20 feet that
Certainly give him something to do with.
I try to consider the public work aspect of things.
So I don't understand. I'm at the point then I don't really understand what I'm looking at anymore. Because I was considering this to be something like, well, your pictures, like the ring road around Jordan Creek, or the roads in between Smash Park and Hyatt Place. I mean, that to me is commercial here. They each have their own lot and have a cross easement
Mhm.
agreement for access. And that they aren't actually private streets, they're just aisles or paths or whatever throughout their own lot, and then they choose to connect to the adjacent lot through a legal agreement.
Mhm.
I don't understand though why they don't just do that versus making it a private street. So I don't know what I'm missing.
That, for our code, that is a private street.
There would have to be an ingress egress easement, which is handled through.
And that's,
It would end up looking like a street. but it's a
And
private
that's-
street.
Across the easements, I think the problem that we're running into is when we look at our ordinance, it doesn't define any of that. So that's also why the second half of the yellow that we hadn't discussed, where it talks about adjoining parking lots and crossings, we put that in there too, because sometimes there isn't even a lane. I mean, it's just adjoining parking lots. But we really don't have a good definition for private street versus public street, or what's a street versus an aisle.
we have private road is a right of way open to vehicular ingress and egress established as a separate tract for the common use and benefit of certain adjacent properties. This definition shall not apply to individual driveways. So in an all-encompassing standpoint, you could consider every drive aisle and every parking lot to be a private road. I don't think we would go that far with it, right? And so it's very nebulous. And so when you say you don't understand the difference between them, when we're reviewing the code, we consider pretty much everything that doesn't have direct parking access off of it to be a private road. So, or a private street in those regards. So that's the tricky thing, is there kind of are differences between them, but our code doesn't define them.
Well, can we define those interior drive aisles to not be private streets?
That's, I believe, what Jim and I's intention are with the last sentence in the highlighted spot is intended to cover that aspect of it.
Okay, so if those continuous drive, if those are not private commercial streets. Then I'm sorry, I'm back to what, so what are we talking about? Maybe I need a picture of. You had the red lines and the yellow lines that you drew, Luke. I just don't understand. I don't understand what we're talking.
So
I'm
I guess
sorry.
what I would like is, I would like to start with, let's start with defining what some of these different things are in our code. And then working this possible amendment around what the definitions actually are. So that we can all have an understanding of exactly what we're talking about and what that means. That's what I would like before
That would
I
be-
will consider.
So this is Jordan Creek.
Mhm.
Do you think all those yellow lines should be public?
No, but to me,
That's
they
what we're
are,
talking- That's
not
what you're
no,
asking to be
That's not
public.
what we're talking about. I
Yes,
don't
it
agree.
is.
I don't agree.
I don't agree with
If-
that, because
so-
what Luke Nelson drew with the red and the yellow, to me, that is not the same thing as what we're looking at in this picture.
Okay.
So when I do our code review of projects that come in, everything that I sketched out in yellow here for how I read our code, I would tell them they can't do, because our code says you can't connect private streets to in a through manner.
Then I would agree. Can we define what we
Yeah.
consider an interior drive aisle
Yeah,
or
'cause-
a ring road or something? and
So
we would say that
This
would-
Walmart's a good example. The yellow line that runs between Stagecoach and what's the one to the north there?
Right.
But there's the Texas Roadhouse and those outlots there on the outside of the parking lot, right?
Yep.
So let's say Mill Civic is Highway 28. That first yellow drive is the Hughes alignment through Hy-Vee. And then you've got Hy-Vee sitting at the back of the lot, right?
Right.
So should that, what he just highlighted, should that be public or private?
And I think that should be private.
Okay.
But when Luke is drawing on the screen, to me, he was drawing what I thought we had decided would be public. So that's why I'm saying either I need a better picture of what we're talking about, or as Jackie suggested, we need to.
Right,
You have-
and so,
definitions.
right, I think this is part of the problem is
Give a
we're
copy
not
of
speaking the
both sides.
same language. We're not talking about the same stuff. And to me, it just makes sense to back up and start with, let's define these things and then let's talk
Okay.
about what we're actually discussing and maybe agreeing or not agreeing.
Right, because I don't have any problem with this concept that you're looking at here and calling those all private streets. But I don't want to inadvertently be approving something that's going to screw us up in the development of Norwalk Central or, you know, an industrial site or something because we approved the wrong thing.
Makes sense.
But Hughes Drive. From Chatham to Colonial is exactly this.
You have a copy of the proposed site.
It's
plan?
exactly that. So why would you make
What would
that?
be
Why
going
would
up
you
there
make that?
So I
You
don't
can throw up
what's going on each side of
the
Hughes Drive
grocery
because I don't
store.
understand why that needs to be
I mean,
private street.
Okay, the
No.
reason I, just to explain, going back,
It would throw.
All right,
it
we
would
can't,
illustrate.
can't have three conversations.
I asked Luke if it's possible that he could throw up the example of what
what,
Fairway's contemplating for a layout of this street in the parking lot.
yeah, if you get into our plats and site plan folder, you can pull it up there, Luke. It would just be. You're gonna have to dig through 9 folders, but you can find it.
But I think definitions are a good.
Yeah.
thing.
I think Jim and I's intent in the yellow language that we proposed after planning commission discussion was that that language would give us the ability to look at that Walmart example that we we're talking about and say that can be private. And so if we were using Hy-Vee's example, that could be private. If we're using where City State Bank and the new 4J retail stuff's gonna be, that we're okay with that being private, right? And so we can certainly rewrite that and it wouldn't be a bad idea to define some things some more, because again, Jim and I spent probably half an hour writing those 3 sentences. Maybe we should have scrapped more than we did, but
And to me, Tom, that, I mean, what I have in my head for Hughes Drive and we've seen a lot of different renderings, and you had the Mahala's retail building. And then you have another retail building down here. We have separate retail developments all along the way. I think there's a public street that goes up through the middle of them. The public can drive on and access. And then if I don't remember the name of the shopping center, the Mahalo's shopping center wants to connect to the shopping center to the south of it and that little retail strip, then they can do a cross easement and that can be private. But I don't know why you would make Hughes Drive private.
Okay. so
Hu-
my-
Hughes, Hughes
my
won't be
opinion
private.
would be Hughes Drive, it could be a private street from Chatham all the way to Colonial.
And I disagree with that.
Because you have retail on both sides of it.
I disagree. I think that's gonna be. I think that would be a bad idea.
Then you're gonna have a situation of the Walmart that we just saw, but it's a public street that's on there. That's what, and you just said you didn't want that, but that's what you're asking for.
I'm not convinced that it's one or the other. That's part of my problem is I'm not convinced it's one or the other because I'm not understanding the differences because there's no definition. And I'm a visual person. I've said that since I started 9 years ago. I need the visual so that I can understand better. And I'm not getting, I understand what Jordan Creek looks like. I understand what happens at Walmart, which incidentally is also frankly a poor example because their roads are crap. And that's part of my issue. So I'm just saying, I need different information in order to change my position.
What information do you need?
I don't know how to say it any better. I want definitions of what these different kinds of roads are talking about. I want a visual of where are we talking about right now? And how is that gonna affect if we do another development? How is what the language that we change here gonna affect a different development when we seem to be writing language for this development?
But I don't think we'll show you visual of the next development.
No, I don't think that this is being written for Hughes Drive. I mean, I think that cow's already out of the barn on that one. I mean, we've already made Fairway make it public, and it's gonna continue on public. I don't see suddenly public dead ending, you know, at the north side of Fairway and then head north.
yeah, I would think the next opportunity to have a discussion related to Hughes would be when Hughes hits the Hy-Vee parcel and Market Drive or whatever we decide to call it, punches east-west out to Highway 28. Then what happens between that point and Colonial? Because then that's your next opportunity, because you've got a new public cross street. So that's the next opportunity in that scenario to have a discussion about two public streets being connected. And can that be a private road or a parking drive aisle? I mean, we can go back and we can more definitively define different aspects of this. I mean, again, right now, everything's a private road if it's not a public road.
Yeah, I like the aspect or the approach to do it in ordinance to cover this, to come up with a mechanism to do it. And I also agree that there should be definitions within that. Because normally when you're dealing with a lot of balls like this in the air at the same time, you tend to describe each one of those balls, right? So, I mean, in the writing of something. So I think I would like to see another run at this where there's a definition section added to this, right? And maybe take a look at, I guess, the structure of those sentences. I understand it, but it needs to be something that's, you know, pretty straightforward. But gives us that flexibility, because I like the idea of it dependent on the approval of the site plan.
And I think that maybe it's not so easy. An easy way to make me more comfortable, if we want to write a definition, is to say that all drive lanes, aisles, whatever you want to call them, within a parcel are not to be considered private streets. And when you get that PUD, it would not be just for like this particular fairway site, but you know, say it's a Walmart type development. You're probably going to get that entire parcel at once. And you can define those yellow things in Walmart. I'm not sure what's still on this screen. Okay. You can define those all as being drive aisles within that parcel, within that lot. And I think that, well, I don't think that would help me immensely, because then I don't have a problem.
And I would like to be able to see the site plan as we're considering whether or not to approve something one way or the other, so we understand what feeds into it, or the concept of what's going to feed into it. So that's why I think having it as part of the site plan approval process would be a good thing. Which I think is what we were talking about earlier, wanting to see the bigger picture of, you know, possible impacts or what might be legal.
And I wonder if part of the challenge with that is that typically that master plan is designed quite a while before they're at a point where somebody has a site plan.
Right. Yep.
That'd be
But you
the,
could still
That's
say,
not the case here.
you can still say within these parcels, drive aisles, et cetera, within these individual parcel will not be considered a private street. It's what's adjacent to what it's connecting to in the rest of the city that's the street. Not, to me, stuff that's inside the lot. And I know that we're just, I mean, this is for the entire city, not just for Norwalk Central, but I thought pretty clear that I wanted all those streets to be public streets because we had so many visitors, people coming from all over, and I want them well maintained. I want them to be accessible at all times. And the only way we're going to be able to assure that is if they're all public streets. And the way that Norwalk Central is laid out, there isn't a Walmart there. Well, there's Norwalk, there's the actual ball fields. But other than that, it's individual commercial parcels. So I don't see that to be a problem.
As long as you're okay. with
Ste-
it. That also means that public tax dollars. are paid.
Stephanie,
Well,
My-
I thought that had always the case. Isn't that part of the agreement that we have with Diligent? They're gonna put in the public road and we're gonna, you know, pay back, yes, Dave?
Well, if we use, go ahead, Dave.
Stephanie, I was going to ask where you think Norwalk, I'm just curious because you lumped Norwalk Central and I'm just curious where that ends. Maybe this is a staff question, but Because I've heard this a couple times where people are kind of lumping, I feel, some of the Norwalk Central pieces in, and I'm not sure. For me, some of this is it doesn't fit the discussion for private roads, but maybe it does. I don't know. I'm just struggling with, I feel like we've gone down a rabbit hole that doesn't fit the intent of the discussion.
To me, Norwalk Central is everything that would be south of Chatham. East of Sunset over to East 18th roughly.
And I think from what I understand, all of Hughes Drive through that area is public. And any private stuff would be inside of a parking lot. Am I correct in that, Luke? This is from planning and zoning a little bit, sorry.
I'm sorry, say that again.
That Hughes south from Chatham is all public.
Yes,
And any private streets that would happen in that area would be like with inside of a parking
yes.
where the hotel is.
Yep, so like the hotel has a drive that comes off of Hughes and that kind of dumps into a parking lot. And then the hotel parking lot plus the parking lot for the Diligent retail, Norwalk Central retail building that fronts on Chatham, that starts getting maybe the first third of the big parking lot in there. And then as development happens, there'll be another parcel, another user up on Chatham, and more of that parking will go all the way over to East 18th, at which point that parking lot will dump out again on East 18th. And so I would fully expect that those two will likely line up. So there'll be a through access point on the south side of the commercial parcel right north of the gas easement on both sides. And so does that create a private road?
It is not, to me, it is not a private road. It is part of that development's
Yep.
driveway. And if
I'd
people
agree,
choose to
but
drive
I don't
through it, that's
know that our
fine.
code right now agrees with that.
Okay, well
Which is
then.
why
I don't
we
know.
need to go back and do,
Yep.
I thought this was gonna be a really quick item.
I don't understand. We're going around in a circle.
We are,
We'll go back to the drawing board. I think we understand what we're trying to get at.
right.
We will take a deeper dive and we'll just delete this section and rewrite it.
Okay,
So,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. I'm sorry too.
let's move on a little bit. Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments on this?
No, we have not.
Good. Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 6:49 PM. Can I get a motion to table item 6D?
Motion.
Second,
By Livingston, seconded by Riva. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Reba,
yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6E. All right, is a resolution approving the site plan of the Fairfield Inn. So earlier we talked about the URA amendment for the Fairfield Inn. This resolution approves the site plan for the hotel. Luke, anything to add?
Just that, we did go through the process to amend our architectural, standards. Partly due to the, hotel's, request and, some of their statements regarding the upper stories of the hotel. So the revised, architectural elevations you can see in the packet do include a stone base around it, which would be class 1 material, and then the windows and then the EFIS product on the upper stories would be the percentages that meet the current code as amended recently.
Okay. Any discussion, question for council?
So this would live up to our amended code that we just did.
Correct.
Any public comment? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve resolution?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Cool, seconded by Livingston. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6F, resolution approving the preliminary plat of Fairway. So as indicated, this approves the preliminary plat for the Fairway store. Before we get into it, I'd like to thank Luke Nelson for attending the groundbreaking ceremony and for speaking on behalf of the city. Thank you very much. Luke Paris, anything to add?
No, just that really this is focused on primarily the right of way and again, the not to go there, but public road. So we're setting up the right of way. So the plating need is more regarding that than necessarily the fairway lot itself. Though it does create that lot.
Any discussion or questions, council? Or public comment?
Motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Lester, seconded by Livingston. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6G is resolution accepting a surety agreement for completion of infrastructure and approving the final plat of Fairway. So this resolution approves the final plat for the Fairway store so they can start building. The surety agreement is used to make sure any public infrastructure is able to be completed. Luke, anything to add?
Nope.
Any discussion, question from council?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Any public comment? Or further discussion by council? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
All right, motion carries. Item 6H, second reading of an ordinance regarding a zoning amendment to chapter 175C.04 airport hazard height and noise mitigation overlay zoning regulations to update requirements for navigation easements. So we've had the airport here to discuss this zoning amendment for the noise mitigation overlay. And it's gone through planning and zoning. Luke, you got anything to add?
Nothing new.
All right, any questions, comments from council or public comment?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston, Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6I. It's the second reading of an ordinance regarding a zoning amendment to establish the Dunn property planned unit development at 11.22 acres south of Delaware Street and west of Highway 28. So the Dunn property is to the south of Windsor Windows and Michael Foods. This project is actually a part of the property we're pursuing for a state certified site. Benefit is that these developers move swiftly and they are ready to start development. So the request is to rezone lot 3 and outlaw Y from M1 industrial to a planned unit development. PUD would retain M1 uses, but modify the bulk regulations. Luke, anything to add?
No, sir.
Any questions or comments from council or public comment?
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Any further discussion by council? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6J. Second reading of an ordinance amending chapter 177 rates and fees, providing for amended water, sewer, and solid waste charges. So we make adjustments to our water, sewer, and solid waste rates about this time, just about every year. New rates will be effective July 1st. Luke, you got anything to add? Any questions or comments from council or public comment?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reba. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
No.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6K is a final reading of an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Norwalk, Iowa by rezoning 250 Beardsley Street from AR Agricultural Reserve to R160 Single Family Residential. So this property is just to the south of Beardsley at Clearwater Drive. Property is being rezoned to single family residential. Luke, anything to add?
Nope.
Any questions or comments from council? Or public comment? I get a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Reba, seconded by Cool. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
No.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 6L is discussion and direction regarding fees for private events for the fire department. Chief Porter, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So occasionally the fire department is requested to provide services for private events. Community events, sometimes charity events, those type of things. We currently don't have a fee structure in place to charge, nor do we have a requirement. Some of the larger cities do require if there's a gathering over a certain number of people, that we require, that we're primarily talking about EMS coverage here. That we would require EMS coverage, or just the ability to charge if they are requesting us to provide those services. So I'm looking for direction from council to see how we should proceed, if you are in favor of me putting these items in place or not.
What's West Des Moines do?
Most of the metro departments, they charge, like, it's around $150 an hour for like an ambulance and 2 personnel. So I would put something in place. We'd probably be looking at our overtime rate plus cost of equipment and that sort of thing. But most of the metro all charges. And I believe even the city of Des Moines, they have something in place that they have first rights to the contracts before they go out to privates, those sort of things. So
I thought we already were charging, so I'd be in favor of it.
perfect. I think it's better for the community to have us serving our community instead of having privates come in to do the same services. So I guess
The other point of the discussion too is whether or not we think it should be mandatory for certain size events.
right. And that was my second question is I had spoken with city attorney over this to decide, do we just want a line item in our fee schedule to say what the cost would be for hypothetically an ambulance and 2 personnel? Or do you want a more robust ordinance in place that requires these services and events over a certain size? I think sometimes the insurance kind of dictates that. I know during the Music Fest, I believe I spoke with Lane Insurance and they are requiring some items were on place with the coverage that they had. So I think that's further direction that I'm looking for here is if you are okay with just a line item for a fee, or if you want to see a further ordinance come forward.
I don't have an opinion.
I think it would be a good thing if we had a trigger there. Because when we issue these permits, for events, right? It'd be pretty simple as to adding it to a checklist if it exceeded a certain number of participants, as an example, right?
Understood, yeah.
And
I
that's,
can look to the other city to see what they're doing.
yeah, see what they're doing, because that,
My
to
application.
me, that would make the most sense, and usually that's what you see in public safety, is it's triggered on the size of the event.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I guess I'd like to see something like that myself.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Item 7, future agenda items. Purpose for this is for council to give direction to staff by way of motion, have items placed on the future agenda. Does anybody have anything? Hearing none, we will move on to council inquiries and staff updates. Jim.
Closing on our purchase on corner of North Avenue and Cherry tomorrow. On that property, you'll see some updates in the future. Then we're gonna probably, I expect, recommend probably just renting that out to private individuals. But we actually need that ground for expansion of the intersection, but of course I'll come back before you people, before that decision's made.
And you've said that before, and I'm
Yeah.
not opposed to it, but you've also said before that the city can't make money. I'm just trying to reconcile, and it might be different context. I'm just trying to reconcile.
It's kind of a
that.
different context. Well, the city. When the city provides a service, I think that's probably what you're thinking of, like when we provide water service or sewer service, or we provide. Any type of service such as that, or we charge fees, it's gotta be, the fee charge has to be reasonably related to the services being provided. And if it's an excess, that's considered an illegal tax, things like that. In this situation, it's not that, because we're just basically gonna lease out for fair market value, a piece of property that we own. So it's not really providing a municipal service to the community.
Okay.
This is just, hey, we're maximizing out the return on an investment of community funds. So does that answer your question?
And it's my understanding that that property would still be required to pay tax, property tax.
Yes, if we do rent it at that point in time, it is a for-profit thing, so we would pay real estate taxes on it ourselves.
Gotcha.
It would not fall, well, we didn't rent it, we just bought it. Just, you decided we're gonna use it for storage, it would fall off tax bills.
Understood. Thanks. Sorry, you might have had more, but I interrupted.
That's okay. There you go. No, the nuisance house is progressing. I think that's gonna change ownership in the next, I would guess, within the next 2 weeks. It has been getting cleaned up by the future owners, and I expect it to continue going that direction. We have a judgment against it, but then that'll remain in place until frankly it comes into compliance and it's habitable and it's good. We'll keep that in place. So that's good. And then also I toured with Tony Strawbridge today, all the different nuisance properties. We've got plans now on several properties in town. So you may see something coming before you authorize us to start litigation on something else also. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah. David?
Nothing.
Ed?
It's pretty neat. He went around with Javers. All those years I couldn't get him to ride around with me and look at him. You know? Anyway, really good speechifying up there at the groundbreaking. Both on the part of the city manager and the economic development director. They did an excellent job. And they gave a lot of kudos to the staff, and it was well deserved for being able to be contortionists and get this through the process. But pretty exciting. They figure on opening in February. That's what they said. Now, you know, that they would have it completed by February. And I think that's been pretty optimistic, but whenever we get it, it'll be a nice addition to the community. But other than that, you know, things are going along good. Intersections look good. I saw those boys out digging in the mud this morning to finish up that bike path on the south side of Beardsley. So a lot of enthusiasm by our contractors. Yeah. Great. That's all I have.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah. I sent an email to Luke, just to pull up, I'll run through a few other things quick. 22 permits in May, so that's continuing to be on pace for our 5-year average, which an annual 5-year average is 220-ish. So we're at 90 right now for the year, so that's pretty good. Got a normal nuisance grass stuff going on. Tony working with Jim on some more bigger ticket nuisance items, of course, as Jim mentioned, and then also just continuing to work with those contractors around the Norwalk Central area to make sure that we stay on top of stuff out there. Next week, we're meeting with an engineering firm that has some experience with environmental work, so that we can keep the NRCS easement process going for our North River sewer extension. And then the map on the screen, we had a meeting today. Holly set up with the folks from Heartland, DeNovo, city, PD department, redevelopment, basically everybody that's been involved out here, just trying to think what's going to happen when tournaments start going here in the next couple of weeks. So we decided we should do some proactive information postings out there for folks, trying to get people to understand where parking's allowed out there, where it's not. Identifying that some of those private property things are going to be the responsibility of those private properties to make sure if something's happening on, they don't want to, they need to be on top of that. The city, we're really just going to focus on any of those red areas, which are public parking or public no parking areas. And just, you know, we're going to put these plans in place. We're going to try and get this stuff out here, but just, I think we all acknowledge that it's not going to be ideal. We built out 8 fields real quick there that are going to draw a lot of attention around the metro and the state, and a lot of people are going to want to come visit us, and we still have 2/3 of the parking left to build out there. So we're in an intermediary standpoint with all of this, and so I think we're just all trying to understand that things won't be ideal. We're exploring some temporary parking options that aren't identified on here yet. So we're just trying to be nimble and adjust as we see things. This is going to be kind of what we go with for the first round of weekend tournaments, and just kind of see and react from there. So if you have comments as things happen, let us know. We'll take those into consideration as we do stuff. I would anticipate that we'll see some kind of temporary parking request back to council by the 15th for another area out there just to expand things and so we can formalize that.
I have two comments. I would propose, instead of calling this a parking map for June 2023, I would call it a parking map for the Greg Young Sports Campus and not
Okay.
put a month or a date. Because
Okay.
invariably come July, we'll forget that it only said June.
Yeah.
So that would be one suggestion. The other suggestion I would have is instead of saying in the red box, no on-street parking in any red zone, because isn't it true that cars could also be ticketed or towed in a yellow zone? So why not? If the private property owner calls the police, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I would,
So.
So here, let me just finish my thought, and then I would just say that, parking only in the green zone.
sure.
And I would just, right, and then you suffer whatever consequences if you're in a zone you're not supposed to be in, which
Sure.
could be a tow, a ticket.
Yep.
Somebody moves your car by, picking it up and moving, I don't know, whatever the consequence might be. I just think it's just more encompassing.
Yep.
That's my 2 cents, but
If the red zones are marked no parking with signs, we would ticket but not tow unless it was a traffic hazard. If a car was parked in a yellow zone, it would be up to the property owner to tow it because it's all private property.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. And if we switch it and then keep a note on there that, parking improperly may result in ticketing and towing, then that covers the same aspect.
And the positive message of park where it's green.
Yeah, but the big red thing was so,
I know, it's a great map.
You can put the box on the bottom and the big box says park where it's green.
yeah, that will be all right. Yeah, those are some good thoughts. But anyway, just wanted to let you know mainly that we're trying to be proactive. We talked with the Heartland folks, we're gonna get this map out to their people so they can provide it to the parents and the coaches of the teams that are coming in and try to stave off as much as we can, but still recognizing that it's gonna happen. So
I want to suggest to them that they carpool.
but that was one of the things we talked about in doing some of those communications is, really letting people know ahead of time, here's the map. Parking is going to be at a premium there. You might want to get there early, carpool, all those things.
So
So,
excuse our growth.
Yeah.
We're growing construction.
Yep. and there's going to be parking that bleeds off down into Merle Huff and into the neighborhood. And there's going to be people that aren't happy about that. But just again, we've got a third of the parking that we plan for the whole area, but probably 70% of the overall activity for the sports campus is built now. So we're not quite balanced
My
yet.
only comment would be, good luck, chief.
Well, this map was part of because I was complaining. So yes, thank you. I know you understand my pain.
It was pointing out the need to plan ahead.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes. All right. Anything else, Lee?
Nope.
All right, Carrie.
Just a brief update. We have the police officer position and the fire lieutenant position that both of those close tomorrow. I have the post for the IT manager is live and that is open through June 23rd. Can't recall, I think we have 6 or 7 people that have already applied for that. So that's exciting. And then next week I'll be sending out our annual employee engagement survey for staff, which I know everybody loves to get surveys from me, but I really do take the responses seriously, and it really sort of carves out for the next year what my focus is on a lot of different aspects. So it is important that staff complete those. So I encourage department heads to encourage your staff to complete those. It does take 15 to 20 minutes to fill out, so it is lengthy. And that's all.
Thanks. Tony.
Just one thing tonight, Mayor. Next Thursday, we have our bid letting for the Northeast Service Area Lift Station and Trunk Sewer Project. That'll serve the next phase of the Holland Point development as well as other additional future development area. And that will come to council for consideration on the meeting on the 15th. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Wayne,
Nothing tonight.
Chief?
Aside from our lieutenant's process that is closing, like Carrie said, tomorrow, I did have a meeting with Cumming. I had a conversation with the city manager, and then Luke and I went to the city manager's office and had a conversation with them as well. I think we have no resolve yet, but we have kind of given them the information, and it's up to them to kind of come back with a solution. So I apologize, I don't have a solution today. I hope to have one in 2 weeks so we can get this finalized before July 1, but we're just kind of waiting right now. So that's all.
I have to say that I'm very impressed with Rita.
Yeah.
She did a great job of hunting for solutions, recognizing the concerns that council had and where you folks are all coming from. So very impressed with her. I think she's gonna work hard to try and make that all happen.
I agree. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Chief?
June 14th is the first installment of Front Porch Norwalk 2023. The mayor and I will be touring residences that sign up. We got 2 seats left in the car if you want to join us. If you do happen to go out, I think this event is going to be special in that we have a group of non-English speakers who are trying very hard to speak English and live together, or not together, but live in the same apartment complex, Cedarbrook, and they have decided to have their own Front Porch Norwalk to get to know city officials better. So if you want to come, I encourage you to go to Cedarbrook and stop in and visit the this group of people. They're very interesting, and they're trying very hard to learn how to speak English, which is kind of hard since they were illiterate in their own language. So it's been hard to try and teach them. Anyways, so June 14th, Front Porch Norwalk, and yesterday was the beginning of the Antonio Lewis homicide trial. That's the stabbing from September. Jury was selected finally today, and first 2 witnesses today. It'll continue tomorrow morning and then takes a break until Tuesday. And on Tuesday, most of the police officers will testify. They hope to be done by the end of the week. That's all I have.
Holly, what do you got?
Sorry, I'm sleepy over here. Not to beat a dead horse further, but on the parking situation coming up next week, the one thing that I would say as part of my role is to be an advocate for our business owners and our developers and people spending money in our community to provide goods and services for our residents. That just generally speaking out the message that goes out from staff and council, of course, is a positive one with this. We know it's going to be messy for a little while, but the main point would be that the entire Norwalk Central development is obviously not completed yet. So we're missing a lot of the parking that will be there next year. So that's the main reason why there's going to be some congestion and some kind of weirdness figuring out the system. Not to mention it's just brand new. But that should just be a very positive message that these things will get worked out. Just bear with us. And it is really exciting. The news outlets are going crazy trying to get out there, and the sports guys are like, hold back just a little bit. We're going to shoot for the weekend of the 9th and 10th to really get the real kind of tournament traffic out there. So, but it is pretty exciting. They do plan to have a bigger grand opening of the turf fields mid to late July, because they really do want to add some announcements with that, with some of their big technology and kind of first in Iowa pieces that they're going to be adding. So we'll be looking for that. And the naming situation I know is a little bit confusing, but just we have Norwalk Central, and then we have the Greg Young Sports Campus, and technically in the agreement, it's Greg Young Auto Sports Campus, but we've worked with them to remove the word auto because it was a little confusing for people. So you can feel free to say Greg Young Campus, no one is in writing, it'll be the full thing. But what that encompasses is the sports campus area. So that would be the turf fields, our city facilities, sportsplex building, city park, and all the things are going to be activity-based, the sports campus area. We have a highlighted area on a map that we could send out so everybody knows what that means. But then Fairway is the sponsor of the turf fields. So on the map, I know Luke and I are sending logos and different stuff because the turf fields are owned by Heartland Sports, but they're called Fairway Fields. So if that makes it any easier for you guys to remember how to talk about them, that's what they are. Thank you for everybody who could make it to the Fairway groundbreaking. It was very nice. If you get hit 5 or 6 media outlet, so that was a little bit surprising because it's a second store or a new store in the same community, but they're pretty excited about it. Being the entrance to Norwalk Central is important. And thank you, Ed, for the nice comments and Luke for the very nice intro. I was expecting some kind of maybe a little smart aleck type of an introduction, which
From me?
was very nice. We will be bringing back kind of a cleaned up version of the social media policy that we had on the last meeting. Just cleaning up the language that you asked us to change, plus we may have kind of a final amended version to bring in front of you, just based on the things that we found as we've been implementing these changes and how it affects specific departments. We've been requesting a couple more just minor edits to just really get it tightened up. But what I can say on the primary city sites, it's been heaven these last couple of weeks. So I know it's a little bit more work in terms of going in and shutting off comments, but it's just like this happy, nice, getting information out. And there's no dog fights, front parlor, so it's kind of nice. But anyway, moving on, the certified site area is progressing. We have engineering teams out, getting ready to do the work, and that's exciting because it took us a while to get to that point. We have the opportunity now to add in another potentially 80 acres into the certified site application that we pulled out because they were in floodplain or floodway area. But with Paris and some engineering teams with Nelson kind of got together and said, is there anything we can do to maybe pull this land up out of that? Because the landowner said it's really not, been farming it forever, never seen it. So we did meet with an engineering team yesterday or a couple of days ago, and they gave us the process for what it would take. And the bulk of that land is not technically in floodplains, it's in a floodway, which is a much different process. We're down the road.
Most of it's in floodplain, not in floodway.
That's not what she said.
You got it
The
backwards.
floodway is easier to pull out of, and there's a corner of the
Backwards.
floodplain.
It's back.
So anyway, we're gonna move forward with the process of potentially seeing what it would take to add that in. And it might cost a little bit, but we could determine if we want to put that on the landowner or the buyer in the future. So that's positive. And then we also need to have a discussion, maybe with council on the next work session. If we want to position ourselves as a data center location, if we're able to add this 80 acres or a portion of it into the certified site, if we're able to add additional land to the west of Dunn's, we really do open ourselves up as one of the few sites in the entire metro and a great part of Iowa to be the next area for these larger data center projects. We've had 3 of them come to us in the last month. The thing that's holding us back is the water capacity. Most of them are asking for 1 million gallons a day. Wayne's like, no way. Waterworks, they said maybe it's potentially possible if they're willing to pay for it. Data centers say they're willing to pay for it, but then we have to determine if it's worth it to us to go through that process in the engineering, partnering with the rest of the metro to set ourselves up for that. So it is a lot of work. It's extra land, it's water capacity, it's all of that. But when each project is $2 billion piece, you have to think about it. So we need to just have a work session on it. But
In the floodplain, there should be plenty of water.
As we said, they just need to hook North River into the data center and dump it out the other side.
That's it, yeah, just reroute it.
Just advances, we could figure out how to make that happen.
yes, that's
The
one.
Chinese pool there is, they put them under the water.
That's it.
All right, thanks. Gene.
I would like to thank the council for your continued support of our special projects. We are currently hopefully halfway done with our HVAC control replacement system. It's gone smoothly so far in the first week, except when I did leave the building a little bit ago, the meeting room did not have air conditioning, and we have 30 teams signed up for a candy sushi program. So we're looking at it that it's going to make the candy more pliable and everyone will be fine. So we hope to have that wrapped up in about a week or so. And again, we appreciate that. On Saturday from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. at the library and spilling out into the park, we will be having our summer reading kickoff. We'd love to have everyone come up. We'll have lots of different activities. Volunteers will be running a foam cannon and some bounce houses. We'll have some food trucks, free popcorn. It's going to be a good time. And don't forget that June is the fundraiser for the Library Foundation. So you can go to Facebook and click on the link and buy donuts for yourselves from Krispy Kreme. You know you want. And that's it. Thanks.
Thanks. Rob?
So an update to the field house project. We're currently waiting on electric to be finished in the commons and the office area so they can pour concrete. They were hoping electric would be done tomorrow and concrete Monday. I have not heard anything, but I'm guessing with the rain the past couple of days, we might be pushed off a couple of days. And then big news on that project is most of the building will be delivered June 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then they will start to do the vertical build on June 12th. So we will start to see the building. Yeah. And then the pool opens tomorrow at 1.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you. Lindsay.
Happy.
Jackie.
So I have a couple things. One, kind of toot my own horn. Today jury returned a verdict against Robert Miller for vehicular homicide by OWI, speeding and drag racing, and serious injury by OWI and speeding. And the significance for Norwalk is that the victim from the serious injury is a Norwalk resident. So proud to be a part of that and very happy for the first part of justice for that family, because there's a co-defendant that goes to trial at the end of the month. The other thing is that Lakewood Elementary School was certified as a Leader in Me Lighthouse School by Franklin Covey Education, which is a big deal. It recognizes that the schools produced outstanding results in school and student outcomes, and because of the extraordinary impact the school is having on staff, students, parents, and the greater community. So very good news for them, and a nice departing shout out for Jill Anderson.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Luke.
Also a few items. First, Central Iowa Waterworks, Wayne, Jean, and I met with Matt Stoffel with PFM, and he helped go through some of the finances. There's still a number of details to be worked out, although what I wrote at the bottom of my page of notes was, this still looks good. So overall, what the key thing that really perked me up is when he said that he doesn't anticipate that we will see any major change in our rates as an end result of Central Iowa Waterworks becoming an entity. Of course, devil's always in the details, few issues that we need to address here and there. I found that my blood pressure goes up whenever I think about phase 1 through 4 of the Western feeder main might not be concluded in our asset list because it's already been turned over to the Going Waterworks. And this whole concept that in some roundabout way, do we pay for that twice? So I get a little heartburn over that. So we're trying to get that addressed. But in the overall scheme of things, as expensive as that project was, maybe I shouldn't even say it, but I will, that's relatively minor. So still overall good thing for the entire metro. Central Iowa Code Consortium. Of course, this was something that Chief and Jeremy, our inspector, were involved with. This is where periodically there's a full review of building codes, fire code, ultimately come forward with amendments so that the metro area is operating together. Jim Sanders was the previous chair from Johnson. He's retired and handed the baton off to me. So I'm chairing that committee now. So looking forward to taking that on in 2024, that next review. Robin went over some of the information about the field house. I will tell you that I attended one of my first meetings out there. And although it's just a big flat slab right now, it's really neat to see that project start to come together. And it's really neat to see those pods, the fairway fields, say that right. Really cool to see that. Looking at the fencing that was in between the two right away, I'm looking at issues saying, hey, can you cover that hole and cover this hole? And DeNovo was very attentive to saying they'll get some of those safety issues addressed before they start getting tournaments out there.
Thank you. Just a couple things. June 10th, 9 o'clock to 10:30 in here, we'll have community chat. And then as something to piggyback off what Chief said, as far as the English language learners, on June the 11th, over here at the Norwalk Christian Church from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. They're going to have homemade ice cream pies, brownies, and cookies to raise funds for a scholarship program for the ELL scholarship fundraiser. And it's a free will offering. So if you got a sweet tooth, head over there on the 11th. That'll be good stuff.
What was the time again?
3 to 5. Yeah. And that is all I had. I was gonna mention Krispy Kreme thing.
Thank you.
You already got it. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Lewiston, seconded by Reva. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same. We are adjourned at 7:20.